This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be.
Oklahoma obliterates Temple Sooners with a 42-3 win. Now they come home, prepare for the arrival of Jackson Arnold back to Norman. But maybe even more importantly is the beginning of SEC conference play. Welcome back to the Sooner Nation podcast. He's Caleb. I'm Matt. Caleb, this is Sooners 3-0, so the third game of the season. This is the first time you and I have actually been able to come together to talk post-game. Give me just one over. We're going to, at the end, we'll have another opportunity to do this. But give me one first impression from the game yesterday with Oklahoma just trouncing Temple.
I mean, I think it's just the defense. The defense has never let up the entire game. The only points coming off of the interception where they just held them to a 3 and field goal. And so the defense has just kind of been the offense has been a lot better from last year, but I still feel like the defense is the pride and joy of this Brent Venables team.
Yeah, defense is just playing outstanding. 3 games now. I mean, three games have allowed 1 touchdown. The craziest stat to me from Saturday, and we'll get into this here in just a little bit, but the craziest stat was the amount of yardage Oklahoma allowed in general to the Temple Owls. And because I'm terrible at time management, I messed this up on Thursday night. We got to the very end. We're like, we got this extra time. Let's talk about how terrible Mike Gundy is. And then I just went down that rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden, that extra time we had was gone. And we ran out of time before I could do my score prediction. I did not predict 42-3. I did have Oklahoma covering that spread. It's on the website. We had it published there at Heartland Sports. But I was not going to pick 42-3. I wasn't going to pick, I think it's 38-14 is what I was going to pick. This was a much more dominant performance than what I even imagined. Temple, before we get into the meat of this episode, here's what we have to determine when you look at a game like this, because it wasn't just us expecting this to be a little bit better. No one ever thought that I'm aware of that Oklahoma would lose this game. I didn't even think that Temple would cover the point spread, but I did expect it to be more competitive than what it was in 2024, and it was not. So here's the question that we have to address. Is Temple just still that bad with a new coach, new players, new roster, all that stuff? Are they just terrible, or has Oklahoma steadily improved to the point where, you give me a better team and we'll do just what we did to them last year? Which one was it, in your opinion?
I mean, I think it's just that Oklahoma is continuing to grow. I mean, look back last season, this team was not functionable on offense. Right. Now I have faith. Like, it's actually fun to watch the Oklahoma offense. Whereas last year it's kind of like, okay, you think back to the Auburn game. The only reason why we won that was because of a pick 6. You look back to the Alabama game. Yes, the offense played a lot better, but 4 turnovers was forced in that game. It's fun to watch both sides of the ball, and it's because this team is a lot more balanced than it was this time last year. And I feel like whoever's going to be in front of us is going to be a better product because this team's actually balanced and they both can rely on each other to dig each other out of these holes.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw or heard anything that Brent Venables said after the game, but one of my favorite comments was he was talking about the defense. He did talk about how they got the turnover, Temple did, and then the defense pushed Temple back. They didn't give up, plus yardage in that situation, held them to a field goal. But then he said a great quote about the team, about the defense, that he goes, it's like they're on recess, and he goes, I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just they have fun. They're out there together. They enjoy what they do, and they have fun. And man, when I heard that, I thought, man, how dangerous is that? Because we know they're talented, particularly up front. Man, that defensive line was just unstoppable on Saturday. And we've seen them dominate the tempo and the line of scrimmage against Michigan. Now we obviously saw them do it against Temple. But when you know you're that talented and you're having fun, man, that leads to a lot of bad situations for your opponents. And I just love that comment from Brent Venables. See that from this group. Even when the backups got in there, you're going down that depth chart and you see guys like Michael Borganowski just flying in like a heat-sinking missile, just destroying guys and watching them celebrate. So much fun watching this team. And I think it's because they're having fun, right? I mean, you see that plays out. Last year, you felt the tension. It wasn't just offense versus defense tension. You felt, offense versus offense because of what was happening. But then you go into like that Tennessee game and the defense gives the offense the ball 2 times in plus territory and 2 times Jackson Arnold just, poops it away. You see, like what you just said, supporting each other. You see them having fun, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's, you know, I just think back to, I'm trying to think who got the sack. Um, but you look up and there's like 5, 6 Sooners that
Mm-hmm.
legitimately had the shot at getting the sack. And it wasn't just, they were there after the play was dead, that they were there while the play was alive. And, I just love watching them celebrate after every big
Yeah.
play. And this is just a defense that, much like last year, is fun to watch. But then when the offense goes back on the field, like I said, it's fun to watch as well. You're not kind of like, okay, how long can they
Mm-hmm.
give them a breather? It's okay. Yes, they're going to give the defense a breather, but they're most likely going to go down and put points up as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just overall great performance. Oklahoma gets out of it relatively healthy. They get out of it 3-0. And Brent Venables has been 3-0 every year that he's been the head coach at Norman. Now that fourth game begins to loom, and it's not just Auburn. It's not just the start of SEC conference play. It's Jackson Arnold coming back to Norman. We obviously have all week long to talk about that. Something I thought that would be fun to do, since this is your and I's first time to break down a game together this season. I thought it would be go back. It'd be fun to go back to our true or false, our over and under that we did before the game, and kind of revisit those. Where were we right? Where were we wrong? What should we have seen coming that didn't actually happen or did happen? So let's do that. Let's jump into this. The first true or false question that we talked about on Thursday night was about Jaren Kanak. And I said, this true or false, Jaren Kanak is the biggest surprise on the offensive side of the ball this year. To which you said the biggest positive surprise. And then we got into a little bit of conversation about Jaden Ott and, how he was kind of been a no-show so far, and then the running game in general. So let's break that down real fast. Jaren Kanak had 4 catches for 86 yards. We will come back to that, I promise. But you mentioned Jaden Ott, and Jaden Ott had 4 carries in this game for 11 yards, which is crazy to me to say. That's a season high. But the story for Oklahoma's running game was Tory Blaylock cracking 100 yards finally for an Oklahoma running back, 14 carries. Caleb, he averaged 7.1 yards per carry and scored 2 touchdowns. Give me your thoughts. We'll come back to Jaren Kanak, but you kind of went down the rabbit hole of this often the running game for Oklahoma, particularly Jaden Ott. So talk to me through it. Let me know your thoughts here.
I mean, I just feel like Blaylock has to be RB1 going forward. I understand that Barnes is a little more physical in the blocking portion, but just with what Blaylock brings to the table, and we've seen that since game one. He's looked to be the best back since game one, and then kind of just
Mm-hmm.
having his career night Saturday, or I guess career morning, whatever you want to say, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards. he just looked explosive. He's a physical running back,
Mhm.
and I just feel like he's going to be what Oklahoma needs to really solidify this running game into a solid production.
Yeah, and I want to give you props here because you called this about Tory Blaylock because my second true or false question was true or false. John Mateer will not be Oklahoma's leading rusher against Temple, which we both agreed that was true. Now Mateer had a good game, 7 carries, 63 yards. He had the rushing touchdown, the long touchdown. He averaged 9 yards per carry. But you mentioned you in that answer, you specifically said you expected a lot from Tory Blaylock on Saturday against Temple, and that's absolutely what we got. Obviously, Javante Barnes got the start. Javante Barnes with the first rushing touchdown of the game, but that second quarter, Blaylock kind of took over. And what I'm curious about now is, Ben Arbuckle talked before the season, like once a guy has a hot hand, we're not just going to pull him out to pull him out. We're not going to rotate guys just to rotate guys. If a guy's got the hot hand, then we're going to ride that dude. And I'm just wondering, is that how Tory Blaylock gets his carries at this point? I mean, is it going to be Javante Barnes with the start, and then if Blaylock goes in there and just kind of lights the things up like he just did, does he stay in? Um, I actually did say in that same response that I didn't expect a lot from Jaden Ott, just because I don't know that he's 100% healthy. And why risk that when you got Auburn coming on Saturday? I honestly, 4 carries was more than I anticipated from Jaden Ott. But the fact that he's the garbage time running back. Here's my question. I mean, first of all, props to you for calling Tory Blaylock and having the big game. But now my question is this: Jaden Ott is the guy that you invested in out of California from the transfer portal. He's the guy that they said we went out and we got him to run this offense. At what point, 3 weeks into the season, you've got a big game coming up with Auburn. At what point do we say, yep, it was definitely an injury and they're nursing him back? Or do we say, it's just not working? He's not the guy we thought we were getting out of the transfer portal. I mean, are we there to have that conversation yet? Or does he still need more time?
I'm kind of there, just simply as just let Blaylock run it through him. He's shown that he's capable. And it's not just like he's shown he's capable against Temple and uh, Illinois State, but he was a solid back against Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what Arbuckle said, we're going to give the hot hand until either the hot hand fades or another hot hand comes up. Let Jaden Ott be that rotation back, and then if he gets hot, let him go. If it's Barnes that gets hot, let Barnes run it. And
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of feel like as of right now, it needs to be Blaylock. I'm not sure what's going on with Ott. Even Brent Bibble said he's not there they wish he's at right now. It kind of sounds like it's a little more of a mental thing, and
Yeah.
we've seen that happen with running backs. We've seen that happen with players in general. And so I'm kind of just at the point where I don't want to give up on Jaden Ott because we haven't really seen him, but I don't feel like we should pay too much attention to him when you have a kid like Blaylock having a fantastic season so far.
Yeah, it just sounds like a right place, right time type situation with Tory Blaylock. Maybe, I mean, Brent said after the game, like, yeah, we've been bragging about Tory Blaylock back since the spring, and maybe like they just when they got Jaden Ott, they didn't realize what they had in Blaylock, and now that they do, they're like, yeah, I agree. I think it's a situation to me with Jaden Ott where he's not producing what he needs to produce in the practice sessions to get the time that honestly he's getting paid to get in those games. But what I love about this is because I think this is something that's gonna be different from college to the pro level. When you're paying a dude big time bucks in the NFL, you've got to play because that's your investment. And to an extent, that's what some college teams get into. I think that's maybe a little bit what's happening with Arch Manning down in Texas, just because you're tying up so much money in him, and you don't really have somebody to come in behind that can push him. But in Blaylock, you've got that guy. You've got that guy that's pushing Jaden Ott. And I think what you got to look at now is if it doesn't change and Blaylock continues to be that dude, then you got to make a decision about Jaden Ott in this offseason. Because what's different from college to the NFL is college scholarships and all that stuff. That's 1 year to 1 year. I just don't know what is going to happen as the season goes on. But I'm not 100%. I think Texas is kind of like my timeline to make a decision about Jaden Ott. If we're not seeing anything from him by Texas, then I'm ready to kind of wave the white flag on him. Let's move down to my third one. The third true or false question I had was, this is the Saturday where Oklahoma ends its turnover drought. We were both agreed it was going to happen on Saturday, and it did not. It just did not. And it's not like a situation where there's not opportunity. There were opportunities. You had Grayson Halton, who, I mean, gosh, that ball was in the air forever. That should have turned into a pick six. He's just a big man, not athletic enough, which is crazy for me to say because I think Grayson Halton is a freakish athlete in terms of dominating the line of scrimmage and getting in the backfield. But when you got to lay yourself out and coordinated enough to catch a football while you're doing that, he just wasn't there. And then you had, Cortland Gilroy with the strip sack. And again, that ball was just there, but Oklahoma couldn't get it. Here's why I want your opinion on this, but I want to tell you, this is why I'm not worried about the no turnovers. Because the opportunity to get turnovers is there. It's not like they're not creating opportunity for turnovers. That we've seen it in every game. Illinois State, Michigan, Temple, there have been opportunities for turnovers that they just haven't gotten. And so I think, we talked about the law of averages on Thursday, and I think it still stays. The law of averages is going to happen and be in favor. And the good news is Jackson Arnold's coming to Norman on Saturday, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the plays are there. You just see, Grayson Holden doesn't really realize the ball's up in the air until a split second too late. The fumble, it was right there. Just kind of had a fortunate bounce for Temple. But I'm not worried. This defense is still suffocating. And I feel like kind of when you play this Oklahoma defense, one thing that's going to be preached all week for the opposing team is ball security, ball security. And is it Evan Simmons? Is that the kid's name for Temple? He's done
the quarterback.
Yeah. I mean, he's
Simons,
done a great.
I think. Yeah,
Simons.
Yeah.
He's done a good
Simmons,
job.
Simons, whatever.
He's done a good job this season at protecting the ball. He hasn't had an interception through the first 3 weeks. I don't know if he has any fumbles, but it's not like he is someone who has been turning the ball over every single week and then comes in, plays Oklahoma, and is perfect, just perfect with the ball. And give it time, and there's gonna be opportunities to make plays. Like you said, you have Jackson Arnold coming in, who he's been a little bit better with the ball than when he was at Oklahoma last year.
But has he faced defensive pressure like he's going to face?
Absolutely. That was the next thing I was going to get is, you have seen him with 2 fumbles, and both those fumbles are against, one was against Baylor, another one was against whoever they played last week. And so he's coughing up the ball. We didn't really see him throw too many interceptions at Oklahoma. It was mainly his fumbles that kind of were the big deal.
Yeah, and obviously, I think that's something that the problem with the benefit for Jackson Arnold coming back to Norman is he knows this defense because he scrimmaged against it all last season. The problem for Jackson Arnold coming back to Norman is they know him and they know his weaknesses, and you better believe they will be bringing the pressure because when he gets rattled, he turns the ball over. We saw it in the Alamo Bowl, and we saw it all last season. And they know that about him, and that's going to be an interesting thing to watch on Saturday afternoon because I'm pretty excited about that aspect. Honestly, I'm excited to see a Jackson Arnold turnover finally go in favor of Oklahoma instead of killing them. And Caleb, this defense has an axe to grind, right? Like they're like, dude, we gave you the ball against Tennessee. We gave you the ball against Missouri. They scooped and scored against Missouri, and Jackson Arnold still blew it. So this defense is going to take that personal against him, right? I mean, am I looking too much into that?
No, not at all. And you've even seen uh, trying to think who it was, kind of go back and forth with him on Instagram over, kind of just being ready for this game. And it's gonna be I feel like this is gonna be a game where you see these defensive stars who were frustrated all of last season because of, hey, we gave you the ball at the 2 yard line in a close game against
Right.
Tennessee, and the first thing you do was give it right back. The first play. And I think he did that 2 or 3 times against Tennessee alone. You
Well, he
look
did it
at
back to back against the Vols. I mean, two back to back possessions. But yeah, you're right.
you
Keep
look
going.
at that Missouri game. We get the scoop and score, and then we get a 3-and-out. Jackson Arnold coughs up the ball. Missouri goes down and ties it. We have a chance to go down and win it, and he coughs up the ball and allows Missouri first scoop and score to kind of
Yeah.
ice the game away. Even against LSU, we start out with that scoop and score by R. Mason
Mm-hmm.
Thomas, and then the offense just does nothing. So yeah, I definitely think this is going to be a game where those defensive players kind of have that built up frustration from a year ago, and they finally get to let it out.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited from that angle. Obviously, both on the website and here on the podcast, we'll have some fun things to say about Oklahoma and Auburn on Saturday afternoon. We're going to keep working on this Temple recap, and we're going to move to the over/under portion where we revisit what Caleb had as far as some key numbers for Oklahoma and Temple.
Optimism isn't sunshine and rainbows. It's fixing things, changing the way we fix things. It's running the world on smarter energy. Because if optimism never stops, then change can't either. GE Vernova, the energy of change.
Sweat moves you forward. Degree Antiperspirant is here to make sure it never holds you back. Clocking in, sweat. Lunch meeting, sweat. Biking home, sweat. Degree Advanced is for the hustlers who put in the sweat. The world's #1 antiperspirant with up to 72-hour sweat and odor protection. Degree, here for sweat. Try it today.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us here at the Sooner Nation podcast. He's Caleb. I'm Matt. Look, if you're here and you like what we do, we know we're small time operation, whatever you want to say about that. But if you like the content, if you're coming back and you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you're catching us, would you do us a favor and hit us up, give us a like? We really that helps us with our following. It helps us with our ratings, and it goes a long way towards what we're doing. Caleb, you came at me with 3 over/under numbers with Oklahoma's game going to Philadelphia to play Temple. I want to revisit those as well because, man, I was off on, I think on every single one of them, I messed up. So let's start. You had your number for touchdowns on John Mateer was 3.5. I said, yeah, let's go with 4. I think I could see him getting 4. He only had 2, one through the air, one on the ground. And I'm absolutely not complaining about that because the flip side of that was I thought it was, refreshing to see 3 rushing touchdowns from the running backs, two of those coming from Blaylock, and then the one from Javonte Barnes, the first score of the game.
Yeah, it definitely was not what I expected this offensive identity to be in this game. But, you get the first drive was very heavy air raid. Then you get down to the goal line and you just give it to Barnes for him to punch it in. And then the next couple drives, it was heavy run. I think it was kind of these coaches saying, hey, we need to try to establish this run. We've already proven that we can sling the ball around. Let's just hand it off and give it and let Blaylock kind of just shine. And that's exactly what it was.
Right.
And then you do have was like a 51-yard dash for
from Mateer
for a touchdown, and then you had the little dump pass to Xavier Robinson to get his 2 touchdowns. But I'm not complaining either. It's not like I'm, oh my goodness, this offense is offense is going backwards. It was just a different pace of what I expected.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear it. There's a car alarm going off outside. I'm very sorry for that. Um, now I said we'd come back to Jaren Kanak, and that's what we're going to do right now. Um, we're going to get into a little bit of heavy Jaren Kanak talk here for the next few minutes. You had over under 1/2 of a touchdown, which means to get over you had to get one, to get under you had to get zero. Again, I really thought I thought, man, they're loving this kid, they're loving going to him, and he had his chances. They were there, and he's had his chances in all 3 games. Caleb, it's kind of like now to me it's like a competition. What happens first? Kenneth gets a touchdown, or the defense gets a turnover. Which one of those happens first? Are probably both going to happen on Saturday. I don't know, but is that what I'm saying? It's like the chances, the opportunities are there for both the defense to get a turnover and Kenneth to score. Just need it to happen.
Yeah, he started off I feel like the first drive, he had 3 catches. I was like, okay, this is going to be a great Kanak game. And then we didn't see him again until the halfway through the third quarter. And again, I feel like that's the majority of it. We kind of went away from the passing game. But, he still had a fantastic game. He did not get that touchdown. I'm sad about it. I've been rooting for him since the Illinois State game to get a touchdown. I know for a fact it's going to happen sometime this season. I just don't know when.
Despite not scoring, I think you got to love how they are using him within the offense. And I don't think I guess a better way to say it is, I feel like we're kind of at the tip of the iceberg with how they will use Kanak this season. Man, we have to look at that. We got to talk about that 2-point conversion, all right? Because it's the Wildcat package. You mentioned that on the podcast Thursday, that they ran that with him a lot in high school, looking at his high school film. No look pass for a 2-point conversion. I mean, you got to love it, right?
Yeah, 100%. I was kind of like, just what are they doing going for 2? And it kind of makes sense because I do feel like this Wildcat package is going to be something we see throughout the season.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I fully believe it was just hey, let's just throw this out there on tape. So when we give this look, Auburn's kind of had to think, okay, we've seen the jump pass, watch for the jump pass. And if you've seen his high school tape, I remember there was like a 4th and 1 where he was in there at the Wildcat quarterback, and he takes it like 75 yards to the house, absolutely just running over people. He's athletic, he's fast, and he's, former linebacker. He likes contact, and
he loves contact.
He's not afraid to take that contact to you. And so my mind is, what's going to happen first? A receiving touchdown or a rushing touchdown? I know we haven't seen any rushing from him yet, but we've even seen him line up as a fullback in the backfield on that I formation in the first game of the season. There's going to be a lot of different looks we're going to see from Kanak for the rest of this season.
And and there's been a lot of comments on our social media page on Facebook, because I've got that 2-point conversion play up on the videos for our Facebook page. And look, a lot of people are like, why burn that play? Why show that play? Why do that? It's genius to do that. Obviously, they didn't need to do it, but you want to do it now for multiple reasons. One of them, just so you can just look at it in a live game situation where there's nothing at stake. If that fails, Oklahoma loses nothing but 1 point. They win 41-3 instead of 42-3. But if it works now, like you just said, Auburn's like, crap, we got to spend time practicing for this. And if they do another wrinkle, Texas is going to be like, dang it, now we got to look at this wrinkle. And it's not just the no-look pass to the holder, which was genius design. But there are so many other plays that can come from that, with Jaren keeping it and going up the middle with it, with a receiver in motion from it. And you can't, like, if you're Auburn, right, this week, you're looking at defensive packages for Oklahoma. You've got to put a defensive package together for that play, but also you've got to put a defensive package together for other variations of that play. And what stinks about that for the Auburn defensive coaches is There's also variations from the normal sets with John Mateer that you got to worry about. So what they did, what Ben Arbuckle did with that one play that meant nothing against Temple, is you've created hours of work in the film room and on the practice field for Auburn's defense that may or may not come into play on Saturday. It's a genius move, and I'm sorry people don't get why they did it against Temple. You know, people are like, oh man, we burned that play. Now we can never use it again. That is wrong. That's false. 100% can use that play, and they will use that play and variations of it as it fits into the flow of the game. I mean, do you agree with all of that?
Yeah, 100%, and that's like my first thoughts, like I said, was why are we doing this? And I'm like, oh, okay, it kind of makes sense. And now that we've given this so much focus, we're never going to see this Wildcat formation again. So
You're right.
but I definitely feel like it's something with a 4th and 1 in
Yes,
Auburn
absolutely.
or in a Texas. Instead of trying to run John Mateer up the middle, you're going to see a Kanak running up the middle, or maybe Kanak bouncing off to the outside. Um, and I absolutely love it because it's a wrinkle. Texas is gonna have to prep for it. Auburn's gonna have to prep for it. They don't know exactly what that package fully looks like. They just know that one little. And the thing is about that package is you don't even fully know what to expect from that package because it came from a field goal unit.
Yes. Yes.
So there's still so much that they have to prep for if how many linemen because saw that with that I formation when we ran out, I think 6 offensive linemen. What is that
Mm-hmm.
going to look like? Who's going to be the offensive lineman? Who's going to be in the backfield with him? So there's still so much up in the air that Auburn's going to have to try to kind of play that guessing game to prep for.
Yeah, you're right. That's a great point on that, on being the field goal unit. Okay, so the last thing you had for Jaren Kanak on the over-under was 75 and a half receiving yards. And this is where you and I disagreed. I think it was the only one we disagreed on pregame. I said under, you said over. I was wrong again. I ended up with 86 yards, average 21 and a half yards per reception. I mean, it looks like you've seen it through 3 games. He went into this game averaging right around 70 yards or 80 yards, something like that per game. Um, it looks like this is going to be the Jaren Kanak that they're going to use moving forward because you've seen it consistently through 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not just his ability to make those big time catches. It's once he gets the ball, he can make
Yes.
people miss and he can run through tackles. And he's not like a slow tight end. He's someone that has that speed that can make those
Mm-hmm.
plays.
Yeah, well, the greatest stat I saw from Kanak on Saturday was that all 4 of his catches resulted in a first down, and 3 of them came on third down. Which means, I mean, at third down, to me, I equate third down a lot to the red zone. I mean, if this is the guy you're going to on third down, I think eventually Mateer is going to go to him in the red zone, which will start producing those touchdowns. But that's a great stat. All 4 catches result in a first down, and 3 of them were on third down.
Yeah, and he's looked like a natural with the ball in his hand. He hasn't looked clunky. He's been able, I feel like an underrated part of his game is we've seen him in the blocking game, which has kind of
Yeah.
was my biggest concern was how is he going to be able to hold up blocking? And you saw it against Michigan. There's just one time he just full on laid out and just took the guy out of I think it was the
Mm-hmm.
first John
That
Mateer
was Mateer's.
touchdown.
Yes. Yep.
And here's the thing is, did he make a fantastic block? No. But he put his body on the line to the point where that linebacker had no room to go. Yes, he fell to the ground, but he did his job. He
Yeah.
sold the block, which was something we did not see a year ago from this tight ends is their capability of making blocks and sustaining blocks.
Yeah, it doesn't have to look pretty to be effective, and that's what it was on that touchdown run you're talking about. We got about 5 minutes left here. I want to move for just a minute or so about the defense because we're not, in my opinion. I mean, this flow is all about offense because that's what we talked pregame with the Temple game. But the defensive performance on Saturday just phenomenal. 11 tackles for loss, 2.9 yards average per pass for Temple, 1 yard average per rush, just 105 total offensive yards for the Owls. And this was, to me, the best stat I saw. 12 punts, Caleb. 12 punts. That's the most forced punts by an Oklahoma football team in 25 years. Incredible defensive performance.
Absolutely. And it's, and one thing I love looking at the box score is you see you see you've seen it spread around. The highest the leading tacklers were Reggie Powers, Kendall Doby, and Taylor Heim, all with 4 tackles.
Yeah, and kudos to Dolby for being back in the mix.
Yeah, I was fully not expecting him to be back this week. I remember the first defensive drive he made a play, and I texted our group chat. I was like, "Was that Dolby?" No one answered me, by the way, so kind of a little bit upset about that. But yeah, he came back, and I mean, his first game back, 4 tackles, tackle for loss, and he played really decent, and that's one thing we talked about. You have, um, uh, we just had we've had really good success in the secondary, but getting a guy like Kendall Dolby back just kind of elevates this cornerback room to a different level.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, and I think it all flows. What's happened on the defensive side, it all flows from what's happening up front with these big guys. And man, Jaren Jackson, David Stone, what a great combination those two guys are, and just dominating, absolutely dominating on Saturday.
I mean, David Stone, I think it was the first third down they faced. David Stone just kind of just picked up the center and moved him to the backfield. And
Yes.
I was just like, he's only a sophomore. He's only going to get stronger. He's only going to get faster, and he's only going to get better. I mean, 6'3", 310 as a sophomore. This defensive line has kind of played above expectation for me.
Which is crazy because the expectation was high going into the season. And when you see plays like that, it kind of lets you know you got one more year of David Stone. I think the same thing's for Jackson as well. 3 minutes left. Give me your first thought. Auburn coming to town on Saturday afternoon, 2:30 kickoff. We will break it down at the website and on the podcast. But your first thought on Auburn?
This Auburn team is better than I expected. In part, a big reason of that is Jackson Arnold hasn't coughed up the ball that much. He's had 2 fumbles, but both fumbles have been recovered by Auburn. But again, Baylor's defense, Ball State defense, and South Alabama's defense do not hold anything against what he's going to face in this Oklahoma defense. I mean, 31 points against South Alabama. That was a shaky game for Auburn.
Mm-hmm.
He only put up, I think, like 140 in the air. And then, I mean, that's just, to me, that's not going to be good enough either. I get it. His kind of strong suit, the way they beat Baylor, was his legs. And you saw that this time. You saw kind of that play out last year with Alabama, where they're like, Alabama's going to game plan us to beat us with Jalen Milroe's legs. And we kind of dared them to beat him with his arm, and he couldn't. And I feel like that's going to be the exact same thing that this Oklahoma defense is going to do to Jackson Arnold is beat us through the air, not with your legs.
Yeah, I think there's some guys on that defensive side of the ball that are just hoping he runs, hoping he tucks and runs. I think the safety group and those linebackers are just like, please come through my gap. Here's my thought. This is just my first thought, my only thought, and again, more to come on the website in future episodes. But I think John Mateer is going to have his highest number of passing yards in a game so far this season. I look at this Auburn secondary and I think, man, what Oklahoma's got in the receiving core, what they got with Jaren Kanak, I think it's going to be a good day for John Mateer through the air. And so that's my first thought. I don't know what Keontez Lewis is, what that's looking like for him. He got his bell rung. We didn't talk about turnovers, but that still is a problem for me. Oklahoma losing the turnover battle all 3 weeks. That stuff we'll have to get to later on. But Caleb, thanks for your time. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope you have a great week. Everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. We hope you have a fantastic week. Enjoy it, and Boomer Sooner.
I'm gonna be the man.